Hello, everyone. My name is Maureen McDowell. I'm the founder and executive director of Keep St. Pete Lit, and this is our fourth episode of Typewriter Talks. It is an online series where we interview Tampa Bay authors and kind of get inside their head and what makes them tick and learn about their writing process. And today we have Arin Greenwood. Yay! I know Arin from our Sunlit Literary Festival last year, where her book, am I saying it right? Your Robot Dog Must Die, correct?
Will Die.
Will Die.
Yeah.
Must and will are very different.
Even darker.
Yeah. Will Die. It's a young adult novel, and she did a reading for us at the Gulfport Historical Society. So I was like, who could I pick? Because I'm, trying to kind of go across all genres and show different types of writers through this series. So, Arin, tell us what you're working on right now.
Hi. First of all, thank you for having me. It's a real honor, and I appreciate it. I am working on another young adult novel now that is tentatively called Year of the Dog. It's about a mother and her teenage daughter who leave Florida to move back to Rhode Island, where the mother is originally from. Not by choice. They have to do it due to circumstance. And when they do, they uncover all of these sort of these dark family secrets that have been kind of haunting the mother for a long time and that have kept her away from home. And also the daughter finds an elderly pit bull while she's there, a dying elderly dog who she takes in and who kind of changes her life while she has her. So that's what I'm working on now. Another cheerful book.
Well, they say, like, with young adult novels, I mean, the stuff that kids are grappling with, I mean, serious issues. I think heavier themes, like when I was in sixth grade, I was reading Sybil about, it was like this thick about this woman with multiple personality disorder, and no one goes like, how's your life? Is your home life okay? And I'm writing stories about a kid that commits suicide. No one goes like, "What's up?" For you need to talk. It was just so. I think young adult novels that kind of touch on heavier themes resonate with kids right now. So why are you drawn to that genre? Because this will be your third young adult novel, correct?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's funny. I started writing young adult books sort of just by opportunity, if that makes sense. My first novel was called Tropical Depression, and it was very much not a young adult novel. I mean, it was kind of a coming of age novel in its own way. It was about a woman in her 20s who is a young lawyer in New York, and through a series of personally traumatic circumstances, ends up leaving to go move to a small island near Guam. And kind of the adventures and growth that she has there. And that was put out by the world's smallest publisher, basically just like a guy I knew who decided he wanted to become a publisher. And that novel made its way into the hands through a mutual friend of an editor at a real publisher, at a bigger publisher. And he liked it, and he thought that I had a voice that would work for young adults. So he reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to write a book for him. And, this is like basically all my dreams coming true. So I said, yes, please, I would like to do that. And so that's sort of how I started getting into writing young adult literature. But what I found was that, call me immature, call me whatever you like, but I found it so easy to just close my eyes and be right back at that age, and to remember what it was like to be that age, and the things that I was thinking about and what I cared about, and how I was with my friends and all of those things. So that's how I ended up writing the first book. And then the second book, it just made sense, I think, to have a young protagonist, a teenage protagonist. That was Your Robot Dog Will Die. And that book was set in Florida at a sanctuary for the last dogs on Earth. And this young woman, this teenager who was raised there, who, in sort of the broadest sense, has to leave home to save everything that she cares about and sort of learn about the world outside of this cozy, perfect place where she spent her whole life. And I think, it was for the same editor. So in a sense, it's opportunistic again, but in another sense, I just think it made sense for that that story to be told from the point of view of somebody who is at the age where you are sort of discovering the world outside of your home and your community and your family. And then for this book too, I don't have a publisher for it yet, so this is not an opportunistic book. This is just the story that I wanted to tell. A lot of it is very personal stuff that is me trying to make sense of my own family things, and also, my love for dogs. I've been an animal welfare journalist, and I've written novels that involve animals. But yeah, this story I think also just made sense to be told from a teenager's point of view. I don't know, every time I write a book, I think like maybe next time I'll write one that's for adults again, or that's from an adult point of view. And then I find myself back in the teenage protagonist. So I don't know, it's just, that's the world that I keep exploring. Yeah, that's my long-winded way of saying, why does anyone do anything?
Well, no, I mean, you covered a lot of topics there. Like, to use the word opportunistic, I think it's the dream to have an editor that wants multiple books from you as a writer, like to just kind of like find the person that believes in you. And it's interesting that young adult literature wasn't necessarily on your radar, and then now it's like what a gift that editor gave you, And also, like, so what are some of your major themes? Obviously, animal advocacy.
Yeah, animal advocacy.
Why are they your themes, major themes?
I mean, I'm just like an animal crazy person. I became vegetarian when I was 6 years old because I loved animals so much. And when I had my bat mitzvah when I was 12, you give a speech at your bat mitzvah, and mine was called "Animals Are People Too." This has just been like, I'm just crazy about them. And I did not start professionally working in animal welfare until I was older. I was a lawyer for a while, and I did a bunch of other things, and then sort of just by a series of kind of things that you could never plan out, I ended up becoming an animal welfare journalist. And just as soon as I started writing about that world, I just realized, yes, like this is the thing that I want to focus on. This is where there's just, the relationship between animals and people basically touches on sort of every interesting thing that you could think of. It's, it's law, and it's hope, and it's society, and it's, it's everything. And the more that I wrote about animal welfare, the kind of more engaged with it that I got, and the more I realized, like, this is everything. I want to focus on this. So that was a long time ago now. And the first animal-oriented novel that I wrote was Your Robot Dog Will Die. That was the last one, the one that we did at Sunlit.
Yeah.
And that sort of stemmed out of a bunch of issues that I'd been covering as a journalist, where, there were a whole bunch of competing ideas and competing figures, and also setting a book in an animal sanctuary, like all of these things that I just kept swimming around in my head, and that, I'd been covering as a journalist, but that I really felt like I wanted to explore more in fiction, where, you just have more freedom, like as a journalist, you report what's true. And like the truth is very interesting, but sometimes you just want the room to imagine things and explore things from that point of view. So that was how I started writing fiction involving animals, was just because I had all of these ideas and settings and characters swimming around in my head, and I knew the only way to kind of order them was to put them into a book. And for this book too, I mean, it's very similar. It's just all of these different things swimming around in there, that, you sort of have to make sense of in the form of a novel, because that's the only way that you can get them out of your head and onto a page, and hopefully like make sense of them to yourself and tell an entertaining story for other people. And so was that a long-winded thing that didn't answer your question?
No, you're doing fine, because it ties in with the next question. I think you have a natural teaching ability, because the next question is like, what's your writing process? Because like some people hear characters' voices. It sounds like what you've said is these different topics and themes that are interesting to you. You kind of want to work them out on the page. What exactly is your writing process?
Yeah, I mean, I think you just hit the nail on the head. I mean, it's really, I feel like, every writer is always walking around sort of like hearing snippets of dialogue and seeing like a, whatever it is, just like a sign or something that like just sparks something, and you think like, oh, I got to use that in a book at some point. Like, oh, wouldn't that be great? And then at some point you just have you've collected enough ingredients, you've collected a, like a setting that you really want to be in, and a plot that you feel like is really going to like keep your interest for a year as you work on the book, and a couple of characters who you're like, oh, I wonder what they're going to do when they get the opportunity, and and then you have to just make yourself sit down and actually write the thing.
That's the thing about it.
So that part of it is really fun. Like coming up with the ingredients for the soup is really fun. Then the process is like, oh, now I actually have to sit at my computer for many hours every day for a very long time, and then revise the whole thing again.
Oh yeah,
it's not exactly what I want.
It's not for the week.
Yeah. No, it's not done in a week. Yeah, I mean, you really wish it were, don't you? Like it sounds so fun to sit down and work on your novel, and it usually, in my experience, it usually is for like a couple of weeks. You're just really into, whatever this new thing is, and then you're like, oh God, now I have to sit here again and keep working on this thing
and again.
Yeah. So that's my process, is like getting very excited about all these things that are swimming around in my head that I can't wait to put on paper, and then being like, oh God, now I actually have to sit and put them on paper.
So do you plot things out, or do you just kind of allow the story to unfold once you get all those ingredients?
So excuse me. So for me, it's usually a mix. I don't usually have things plotted all the way out. I sometimes wish that I were the kind of writer who did do that, because I feel like that would probably make the part of sitting down and writing it a lot less painful, and probably would also mean that you need fewer revisions at the end of it. But I tend to, or maybe not. Maybe that's just like steps to the process, and it's still going to be a long process.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I usually, have I done this enough to have a usually? I guess I've done this enough to have a usually now. So I usually sit down with some ideas of where the plot is going to go, and then I get very excited when I figure out what the ending is going to be, and I can't wait to get to the ending. Mm-hmm. And then the steps along the way, I do not always have those worked out. But I always keep this like long involved Google Doc with like notes about what's going on in the book and stuff that I can't forget, and what the characters look like and what day it is, because you can easily, forget which day your character, just like we forget which day we're in anymore.
Where are we? Who are we? What year?
Exactly. Yeah. What year is this? It's very easy to forget all that stuff for your characters too. So I have usually some outlined plot points in my Google Doc. And like I'm working on revisions on Year of the Dog now, and it's divided up into 3 parts plus a preface and an epilogue. And so at each of the starts of the part, I have notes to myself, like here's what has to happen through these next few chapters. But yeah, I don't have detailed outlines usually. I should do that. Thank you. I should do that.
No. I'm not. I'm just curious. It's really just seeing, I really want other writers, even readers, to see that there isn't like one right way to be a writer. Everybody you have to like figure out what is your best way to work, and it might change depending on the time of your life. Like
how much time you have,
if you have an elderly parent to take care of, if you're not your best self, and you really want to be able to have that flexibility to adapt in writing. But as you said, the goal is to write. Yeah. So however that happens, I think is the right way to do it. So, what would you say, how is being a journalist informed? Has it informed your fiction writing? Has it hindered it or helped it, or
That's a good question. Has it hindered it or helped it? I would say, so I'm now working in nonprofit communication, still in the animal protection world, but I'm not working as a journalist now. I would say when I was working as a journalist, it probably both helped and hindered. I think it helped to the extent that I was just writing so much. I was writing usually 3 to 7 stories a week. every week of the year for years.
Mm-hmm.
And so just the sheer practice of like my muscle memory of like sitting down at the computer and my fingers know what to do. Like I've done this many, many times, and that probably helps. Also, I've just thought through so many times of like how to tell a story about an animal, and how to write about animals. So like that's probably helped. On the other hand, it you get tired, like, and that probably doesn't help. So just being tired from so much writing, it then you sit down and write some more. So that's probably not such a help. It's probably nice to be like a little bit refreshed. But I mean, few writers have that luxury of getting to come to it fresh. I think most writers I know have other jobs too. So it's something that we're all trying to fit in around the earning yourself a living.
But it's cool though that, as you said, you're still an animal advocate in
Yeah.
the nonprofit world. So
Mm-hmm.
you have that connection. Some people who have other jobs would prefer to have a job that's so different than their writing life. So then they can kind of shut it off. But
Yeah.
I personally am the type of person that I, want them to kind of overlap. So,
Yeah.
I'm always kind of in this creative space. So that's
Yeah.
great that you're able to still be an advocate in other ways for animals. And I'm sure that informed your writing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I count my blessings all the time that I get to work in a field I care about so much. I mean, it's no joke. Like I care about this, and I feel extremely, extremely lucky that for the last almost decade now, I've gotten to work in a field that I care about this much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what would you tell your young writer self that was just starting out? When did you know that you were a writer? Was this something you've always known, or did you like kind of come to it later on? And like what if you could go back and tell a
Excuse
younger
me.
writer some advice, what would you tell her?
Oh, that's a great question. That's a really great question. Yeah, I mean, when I was a little kid, I used to carry around notebooks with me and just like scribble stories in them all the time. And I've always been bad at joining activities, but when I was in elementary school, I used to carry this notebook around and ask people the question of the day and like write down all their answers.
Oh, I love that. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
such a little nerd. But I mean, I guess what I would tell myself younger, my younger self, is take this seriously. This is something that matters to you. And I didn't grow up knowing anybody who was a writer, so I didn't really know like this is something that you can do. This is something that you can pursue, and that like people can earn a living doing. And I think I would have told my younger self, just take it more seriously. Like I was very lucky when I was younger that I just kind of, the one thing that has been consistent my whole life is I've always had sort of the same writing voice. I mean, not everybody loves it. Like, I've seen some very unpleasant Goodreads reviews from people who don't necessarily love it. But it's the voice that I've always had as a writer. And I didn't always know how to channel it into sort of the structure of a story or the structure of a novel. And I think I coasted a lot just on being able to, just delight myself with a nice turn of phrase or a funny little bit of dialogue. And I think I would have said, take the craft part of it a little bit more seriously younger, take some classes, like get some good feedback, make yourself write a novel younger and then throw it away if it's no good. But don't just treat this like it's something that is like a funny little thing to have on the side. Treat this like it's something that you want to do something with. And yeah, I mean, I always had it in my head. I thought I had one novel in me. That's what I sort of figured. And it's funny, when I went to law school, I had this idea. It was such a stupid idea. I was like such a dummy, but I had this stupid idea that I would write a novel while I was in law school, and that it would definitely get published, and I would definitely make quite a bit of money from it. And then like I would use that to pay off all the debt that I'd taken on to go to law school.
Brilliant.
And then it was such a smart plan. Like where were the holes in this plan?
Yeah, but that's your imagination at work. Like Anything's possible, you know?
Anything's possible.
I mean, if you think about it, as a writer, you sit down and like create imaginary worlds.
Exactly.
Like,
and that was quite an imaginary world.
Yeah, I mean, that's so different in our waking life, right? It's actually a gift, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh God, it was so dumb. But like I was sure that this was going to happen. And I took a fiction class when I was studying for the bar. You know, like this is but yeah, I mean what I would have said to my younger self, I guess probably is like start saving for retirement earlier because like writing is not a sure thing, and also take this more seriously younger. Like develop the parts of this that you're not kind of automatically good at or that you don't find easy, and like figure out how to get better at those parts. And then try younger. I think that's what I would have said.
That's good advice, though. It's good to kind of reminisce and think how you would do it differently. And like, I'm sitting here going like, all right, I'm 45. I'm going to start saving for retirement.
I'm 46, about to turn 47. And I feel like it makes a good idea too.
Thank you for that. Cause as my mother said to me today, you're the youngest you're ever going to be. And I'm like, okay.
Thanks, Mom.
That's awesome. So
I'm not feeling anxious enough.
Oh yeah. I started getting gray hairs and I'm like, okay, how am I going to roll with this? I can't think about it right now. Yeah. My daughter's like, Mom, you've been getting them for a while. I told you, they're not blonde. I was like, okay, all right. So
whatever you're doing, it looks great though.
That's a whole other topic. Another video.
The haircut podcast.
Right. How to age gracefully.
Exactly.
As a woman, that's important. Yeah. That's a whole other topic. So what gets you unblocked? Like, and what gets you inspired? They can kind of be, it's kind of the same kind of question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great question. I mean, for me, having a deadline is what gets me inspired. Like, I really like when somebody says, I need this from you by blah, blah, blah date, because then, I will work my tail off to get people whatever they need by that date. Barring that, so like for this book, my agent has read the first draft, gave me a lot of great ideas for how to start over and do it again. But now she's been reading the chapters as I go, and she knowing that I like this encouragement will text me, once a week or so and say, I'm looking forward to new chapters. So that is very inspiring. But also, I mean, outside of just kind of practical concerns, I always find when I'm someplace new, I get really juiced up about writing again. Even being on an airplane, often I'll like pull out my laptop on an airplane and find myself writing more quickly than I do when I have a whole day stretched out ahead of me in normal life. So yeah, I think sometimes, I guess the answer to that is pushing myself out of my comfort zone often is the thing that like helps get me going again, and thinking about life in a new way, characters in a new way, getting, I mean, it's funny because excuse me, writing is all about what's inside your head, but sometimes you need to get out of your head to be able to, really get that going. So yeah, those two things, deadlines and then getting out of my comfort zone. Those are the two things.
That's good. That's good advice.
Yeah.
Because some writers don't like deadlines. Like
I love deadlines.
They like to have that kind of freedom to do their own thing. Like maybe my last book the space between it wouldn't have been 9 years if I had deadlines, but it got done. And I just, I'm different. Like I'm like intuitive about it, and I couldn't have come out earlier. And, different, because as a poet, like these poems would not have been the way they are because I had to be editing them at the age that I am with the lens that I have. So it's just really, it's interesting to see like what motivates people differently and stuff. So, this is kind of a two-part question, but who are some of your favorite authors and what are you reading right now?
Oh gosh, I am finding that it is very hard to focus these days. So I have been watching a lot of television and also just downloading whatever light reading Kindle tells me is free today. So like reading some light book, I don't even know what it's called, about a woman who's marriage falls apart and she ends up having to become a teacher at a private school in New York. Like, I honestly, I don't even know what it's called, but Kindle said, here, read this, it's free. And it's, exactly the thing I need to take my mind off of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, gosh, we're in such strange times. We've been watching just a ton of television, to be honest. Lately, we've been binging The Wire again, which is...
Yeah, I'm watching The Office from the beginning. So, and I have never seen it. I'm like this cultural reference. So my neighbor and my daughter and I, and my mother actually is involved now because we all live in the same building. We're meeting every night and watching a couple episodes of The Office. Like, it's just like... But one advantage of that is like even Hulu, Little Fires Everywhere was just put into a series, and I just finished Normal People, and I immediately...
I love that book.
I hadn't read the book, and it had been coming up like in my circles. Like I see the cover, and I'm like, I need to read that. So I downloaded the book right after watching the series, and I started reading the book, which I've never done before after watching the movie. But
I didn't even know that there was a movie for Normal People.
It just started on Hulu. It came out on Friday. Yeah,
How is it?
Phenomenal.
Well, I'll have to watch that.
I
love that book.
Yeah, I tell people don't watch it if you have children around. It's steamy. It's no joke. Watch it with your husband. But
that was amazing. And she does something that so many good writers do, which is just makes it look so easy. Like you read it and you think, how do you just record this scene between two people and make it seem so natural? But it's so good. It's so natural and it seems so easy, but it's like, that's not easy. That's hard.
It's really translated into the series really well. The two main characters are just phenomenal. I actually watched the whole thing. I binged it and then I started over again because I was just like, just how they conveyed the intimacy between the two main characters, and then to read the book, and it's really almost word for word in a lot of ways.
Right.
So watch it and tell me what you think after reading the book. And
I definitely will.
Yeah, it just came out on Hulu Friday. I've already seen it last Friday. So I went through it and halfway through it again because it's...
We'll definitely have to watch. Yeah, so that book, there's another book that I really loved that apparently is being made into a movie, and for the life of me, I cannot figure out how they're going to do it. The book, My Year of Rest and Relaxation.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Apparently Yorgos Lanthimos is turning it into a movie, and I can't wait to see it because it was another one of these books where you're just like, this shouldn't work. Nothing about this should work, but it was so good.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to see what happens with it on screen.
Yeah, that's the thing that's also good about like these streaming services, because you can take a book and turn it into this is 11 episodes. They're 30-minute episodes, and it really corresponds with the chapters in Normal People. And it's just so interesting to watch them grow. And I think it's a cool time for, translations into film, because I'm a film buff, and to see how the adaptations are done. And it seems a lot of them are being produced by women also. So that might be part of the narrative too. So, what about if you had the holy grail piece of writing advice to give, what would it be? I used to say the Bible verse, but I was like, I need to come up with a better term. The holy grail of writing advice that you would give.
That's a great question. I mean, I feel like I'm still trying to figure that out for myself. I guess it would be tell your story, tell the story that I guess I would have two pieces of advice. So one is, tell your story, tell the story that means something to you, reach deep inside yourself and be raw and be honest and be funny and, tell the world as you see it. That would be one. And then the other would be, if you care about being commercial, figure out how to be commercial. I mean, I've never made any money as a writer. I get little teeny tiny advances for the last couple of books, no advance for the first one. And I think, if I had been mowing lawns, I would have probably made more money off of this. So this is not advice on how to make it, commercially.
Yeah.
I feel like for the personal, working this out in your head part of it, it's tell your story and figure out how you want to tell it. And then for the commercial side, I would say, I don't know, like, tell me if you figure it out. But you know, I guess, like, yeah, I don't know how to make it as a commercial writer. How do you do that? Good advice.
You're talking about making money as a writer, but like
Yeah.
your last book was very well reviewed, and
Oh, thank you.
yeah, I mean, so it depends. I guess it depends on what a writer defines success as.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think I'm still trying to figure out what it means to have success. I mean, I don't know what it does. You know, I guess, like, my younger self would have been very pleased with my 46-year-old self to have had 3 books published. Like that, you know, that would have felt, I thought I have 1 book in me.
Yeah.
So I've been pretty pleased by that. I have an agent who reads my stuff and is going to try to sell this book that I'm writing now. Like that would have felt pretty amazing. Yeah. So yeah, isn't that dumb to, like, to be able to look at that and say that's not good enough for somebody?
Yeah, and also, like, I mean, I've read things that say, like, I mean, it's great to make money as a living as a writer, but I've also read things that say you don't want to put that much pressure on your writing, you know, that's how you make your living. And some writers have actually said that they appreciate that they have another job, so that writing can stay in that kind of safe space of not putting food on the table. And so I think it all depends on what works for you and what's your perception. And, you know, I had a calling to be a poet, so I had to find another way to pay the bills. Like, it was never an issue. You know, like, do you want to teach? Like, what do you want to do other than being a poet? Because, you know, I mean, maybe if you're Billy Collins, but, you know, you'd be surprised. Some writers that you think are really successful and making good money, they have to do other things. And
well, maybe that's the advice that I would give then too, is, like, just understand that for most people, as much as you love it and as much as what looks like outward success is happening, that, like, chances are there's going to have to be another way to earn a living. And so try to plan your life so that you have both those things, so that you have the room to be creative and write the things that matter to you, and that you also are able to live in a way that, you know, is comfortable for you and that makes you happy. And so, you know, that for most writers, you have to figure out that balance and, you know, figure out which part's going to take precedence. Like I once, when I was finishing my first novel, Tropical Depression, I was still working as a lawyer then and still paying student loans. I'm still paying student loans. It'll be another year or two till I'm done with those. But I left the full-time job that I had and decided to become, this is like the main character in my first novel. I had left working law in New York and taken a job working on a small island near Guam where I was working as a lawyer. And I left my full-time job there and started taking on project work, you know, writing briefs for lawyers and doing research for lawyers and that sort of thing, to give myself more time to work on my book, because I thought, you know, this is the time that I have to do that. I don't have responsibilities to anybody else, and, you know, and I have the space to do it, and I have the story in my head, and I want to try to really make a go of this. And so, you know, I basically, like, took a year away from full-time paid work and had to live more simply and couldn't travel as much and do stuff like that. But I really wanted to invest in myself like that. And, you know, and now I have a husband and we have 4 pets together and we have a mortgage. And so, you know, you can't do it in that same way now, because there's people who are counting on you to help pay the mortgage and that sort of thing. And, you know, so I guess just be prepared that, like, the rhythm of life might shift at various times, you know, and that you'll be lucky if you get to take control of that and decide when that'll happen. And that, you know, now is the year that you want to put other things on hold so that you can work on a book. And next year, maybe you're going to concentrate really hard on a different part of your career, and that's normal. And, you know, plan for that, like, maybe that won't happen. Maybe you'll hit, you know, strike gold, or figure out how to, you know, write a book a year that sells pretty well. And, and you can live on that. But for most of us, as best I understand, I don't know all writers, but as best I understand it, for most of us, it is kind of it is something where you have to figure out how to balance, working on your writing and working on the other things in your life that you need.
Yeah, I love that term. The rhythm of life. I like that. I think that's a good way to, because we can get so fixed that things need to be this way. And if they're not, we're not successful.
Yeah.
Not living a true writer's life, but like life gives you different things at different times. Like, did we think in January that we would be in lockdown right now with the deadly virus out there? Like, are we in a science fiction novel? Like sometimes I'll be like, because I'm still in my bubble at home, and then I go out and it's like, there's people with masks on, and there's oh yeah. So, you don't have a clue.
Yeah.
I think it is about like, just kind of figure out what is your rhythm of life at that moment, and then just kind of ride that wave, or, So do you have a snippet of some of your work to share? We'll wrap up with that. Yeah.
I'll read a little bit from the book I'm working on now.
Thank you.
It's called Year of the Dog, and this is the prologue. On the drive home from the animal shelter, I try to think of how I'm going to explain to Mom why we are now in possession of a 60-pound, white-faced, scarred-up old pit bull named Alice, who is dying of cancer. Mom, she's very sick. I couldn't leave her there at the shelter, I rehearse, but I can hear her likely response. Sylvia, you are not personally responsible for every creature on this earth who's hurting. Along with, Sylvia, we don't have room for every sick animal you might want to bring home. We're not a hospice. We're not a veterinary clinic. Might. I wasn't bringing home sick or dying animals on a regular basis. Not since I was really little, and for that one apocalyptic year, we kept finding half-dead birds everywhere in town. I put them in shoeboxes and walked them to the veterinarian's office. Dr. Hart told me she'd fix them up and set them free. I don't know why there were so many birds that year. I hadn't thought about it in a long time. But now I could hear Mom going on. Sylvia, now isn't the time for us to get a pet. You know that. We don't have any money. We aren't stable. We aren't in any position to take care of her. Plus, she's a pit bull, Sylvia. We can't have a pit bull. We aren't the kinds of people who have a pit bull. But she's dying, I'll say to Mom. This isn't forever. Alice and I sit in the back seat of Adam's minivan. He's up front like our chauffeur. Alice is staring out the window, watching East Worston go by. She looks to be on high alert. I wish that I could explain why she is in this van. I wish I could explain that she will be safe with me, assuming I can convince Mom. I stare out the window too, trying to come up with an argument for keeping Alice that might be persuasive enough. Mom hates it here, but it's sort of pretty, even on a gray day like today. Old houses, big trees, a nice main street called Main Street. The washed out colors are so different from Florida, where everything is bright, bright, bright. The sky is different, the yards, the birds, everything. Greg and I not being together, not being a couple, not even being in the same state is different here too. Me being in a van with a guy I just met, transporting a dying dog to a home I barely know, where my mother will be furious at what I've done. There's a lot that's different. I don't truly know what to make of it all. I feel sad and overwhelmed. I try to stay hopeful. I rest my hand on Alice's back. She turns her head and licks the inside of my elbow, then goes back to staring out the window. Adam pulls into the driveway of the big, decrepit, partially burned house where my grandmother Hetty lives. Mom and I are staying in the even more crumbling cottage behind the main house. I say staying, not living, because we are still new there, and anyway, it feels temporary. It's all temporary, for Alice especially. I wonder if she knows she is dying. I wonder if she knows she will live with me now for as long as she's got left. I wish I could explain to Alice that I am going to do everything I possibly can to give her a good life for however long she has to live it. I wish I could tell her that I need her as much as she needs me. So that's the prologue.
Oh, I love it so much. I love your voice.
Thank you.
And I love, like, it's like I became her in that really short period of like how the way that you think, and even how you describe the setting, like it's just, we don't necessarily digest things, we just take things in. And I think, wow, thank you so much for sharing. And I love the voice.
Oh, thank you.
And I love the reasoning, like, and just the idea, like I had a pit bull, so I get it. And she died of cancer. And it's like, and I'm a mom with it, and having a child bring home a time. Oh my God, when I have no money, I went all the different places in my life I've been. I went, like I was her and I was the mom and I was a pet owner. So, and, of moving someplace new and then not dating somebody. Yeah. And like thank you. You just took me on a really cool journey. Like, it's like 3 minutes.
So you ask what gets me unstuck? Praise gets me unstuck. Okay. Now I want to sit down and write more.
Keep going. Arin, thank you so very much. It's been such a privilege to get to know you better through this. And you gave some wonderful writing advice. And that was the kind of the point of this, to kind of get inside the heads of writers and see that we're all a little extra. But the main thread is that we love writing. Like it's what we want to do and need to do. And so thank you so much for sharing.
I really appreciate you asking. It's an honor to be on. Thank you.
Cool. So thank you, and good luck in these very interesting times right now. So, and good luck with your writing.
Oh, thank you. And enjoy The Office.
Oh, yes, I know. We're on season 5, I think. So they're trying out the longer episodes. I was like, this feels longer. So, all right. Thank you so much.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.